Good morning, everyone.
Good morning, Rabbi.
A good Chodesh Tov. We are learning Mishnah Shkalim, Perek Zion, chapter 7, Mishnah Vav, Mishnah 6. The previous Mishnah mentioned that there was that the Beis Din, that the highest court of the Jewish people had instituted, that if a person finds an animal in the vicinity of Yerushalayim, that they have to assume that it is either an Ola carbon or an animal that was consecrated to be an Ola carbon or Shlomu carbon, that they instituted that the Nesachim, that which comes along with the animal, meaning the wine and the meal offering, should come from public funds. So Mishnah Vav continues now on some other examples of things that that were institutions that were instituted by the court, along with what we just said. Amar Reb Shimon said, Shiva Devarim Hiskinu Beis Din. The court instituted 7 things. One of them is what we mentioned, what we learned yesterday, and what we just mentioned now. That's number 1. This Mishnah is not going to enumerate all 7. It's going to enumerate a couple of them. The next example is Nachri Sheshalach Oilasa Mimdinas Hayam, a non-Jew who sends his burnt offering from a foreign country. That means a non-Jew can bring a carbon to the Beis HaMikdash. In this case, the non-Jew who brought his carbon to the Beis HaMikdash was too far away. He was far away. So he sent his animal, right? He sent an animal along. He sent an animal with someone to bring to the Beis HaMikdash. When it came to the Nesachim, in that situation, the carbon, we wouldn't have him bringing the wine or the oil because we'd be concerned that he may not keep it pure. And therefore, what he would do is send the money. The money doesn't become impure. So therefore, the Mishnah says like this: the Nachri Sheshalach Eilas Midinas Hayam, a guy, a non-Jew who sends his burnt offering from a foreign country, Vashalachim Anisachim, he sent with it the libations. He sent along with it the money for what goes along with the animal. Krevin Mishalai. Okay, he sent along the money, then we offer it from his. Vimlav, we didn't send along the money, he just sent the animal. He didn't send along the money for the other parts, for the other things, for the wine or the meal offering. Krevin Mishal Tzibur. It would be offered from public funds. Now, we say like that. Let me read you something here from the bottom. It's interesting. The interesting point. If a Jew sent an offering without nesachim, the offering would simply not be accepted without money for nesachim being provided. If the Jew did it, he knows what he has to do. He should be doing it. If he doesn't do it, we're not going to accept his carbon. With regard to a non-Jew, however, the court instituted to avoid provoking animosity that his offering be accepted even if he neglected to provide payment for the nesachim, and the community funds be used for the nesachim. Basically, the non-Jew should be sending the money too. But if he didn't, in order not to cause problems, we would actually supply the nesachim from communal funds. So that's the first thing instituted. He instituted that. We instituted that if the non-Jew was again sending the animal from far off, and he didn't send the money for the nesachim, that the nesachim would come from the communal funds. Now, they also bring down here in the notes, the Mishnah speaks of a non-Jew who sends his offering from overseas, because if the non-Jew were in the land of Israel, then in the case that he did not send money for nesachim, he would simply be told to provide the nesachim. If he was local, we would tell him, you're missing something, and provide the rest. But when we're talking about that he's far off and we can't contact him, that is where we say that although a Jews we would not accept without money for the nesachim, the non-Jews we would. Okay, so that's the first thing. Next. V'chein ger shemes v'niach tzvachim. You had a convert who died, and he left over animals that he had consecrated for karbanos, for sacrifices. Im yesh lo nesachim. If he also set aside money to be used for the nesachim, for the things that accompany the animal, then krevim mishalai, we offer it from his. But if he didn't leave, krevim mishal tzibur, they will be offered from the community. Now what's happening here is like this. We're dealing here with a ger. It is possible for a ger not to have any heirs because his connection to previous family members is not a connection according to halacha. And if he didn't even have children, and he didn't have children, he doesn't have heirs. A Jew has there's some kind of connection somewhere. There's some kind of a relative somewhere. In the case of a ger, it's possible that he can die without heirs. The Torah says when that happens, actually, his estate becomes hefker, becomes ownerless. Anybody can come and lay claim to it. So in the case here, we're talking about where this ger passed away. He had no heirs, and he left over animals that were already consecrated. So those consecrated animals are not ownerless. They have to be brought as sacrifices. The thing is that if he set aside money already for the nesachim, for the things that accompany the animal, then fine. Then we use that money to buy the wine and the meal offering. But if he didn't leave over money for that, and now his estate is hefker, his estate is ownerless, it's really now open for anyone who wants to lay claim, where is the money for the nesachim going to come from? And the answer is, they instituted that it comes from the communal funds. The next thing that mentioned is, Utanai Bezdinhu. Interesting, the little changing of the word here. But Tanai Bezdin here means it was a stipulation of the court, al Kohen Gadol Shemes, on a Kohen Gadol that died, Shedei Minchase Karev Mishal Tzibur, that his meal offering be brought from the community. Now what that means is like this. What we're talking about here is, the Kohen Gadol brought a daily mincha offering, a daily offering of flour and oil, consisting of 1/10 of an ephah of flour, fried in olive oil, and then baked into 12 loaves. Half the loaves were offered in the morning, and the other half in the afternoon. This is called the Kohen Gadol's minchas chavitin. This is what he brought every day. So again, they were made into 12 loaves. Half were offered in the morning, half in the afternoon. The Kohen Gadol brought this daily offering from his own money. The Mishna now goes on to discuss who must pay for this offering when the Kohen Gadol dies. No one has yet been appointed to replace him. The Kohen Gadol dies, the minchas chavitin has to be brought. Even if there's no Kohen Gadol, it's going to be brought anyway. Who's going to bring it? Where's it going to come from? So we just read, the first opinion is, Utanai Bezdin hu al Kohen Gadol. It's a stipulation of the court regarding Kohen Gadol Shemes that died, the high priest that died. Shetei minchase karev mishal tzibur. You know, it's going to go ahead and it was going to supply the funds for this offering that Kohen Gadol would have brought. It's going to be communal funds. Now, what's interesting to note is that now again, this Mishnah, this first part of the Mishnah started off Amar Reb Shimon. It's Reb Shimon saying these things. So according to Reb Shimon, when it comes to the communal funds being used for this sacrifice, for this offering that the Kohen Gadol should have been doing every day, but now he died and there's no Kohen Gadol been appointed yet. It's really, according to Reb Shimon, we really have a pasuk, we really have a verse that teaches us that when this happens, it's the community that then brings this meal offering that he brought every day. It's a community, it's a pasuk, it's really a verse in the Torah. So why is Reb Shimon call it a Tanai Bezdin? Why is it a stipulation of the Beis Din? So the way that it's explained by the Tanura explains that what happened is like this. The Torah law was that when the Kohen Gadol dies, that it's communal funds that cover his minchas chavitin, what he brought every day. The thing is, it seems that this became kind of a strain on the communal funds. Not sure exactly why. I don't know how much money was involved. You know, how often was the Kohen Gadol dying? In the second Beis HaMikdash, he was dying pretty often. So, but again, you know, it seemed to become it seemed to become a strain on the communal funds. So they then instituted that, you know what, who's now going to bring? So who's going to supply the funds for this offering? His heirs, his children, his heirs are going to bring it. Right? It was supposed to come from his money anyway. They inherited his money, so they're going to be the ones who are going to supply the money for these nesach, for this minchas chavitin, for this sacrifice of the Kohen Gadol. And guess what happened after time? Take a guess. The children weren't taking care of it. They weren't doing it. They didn't want to do it. And therefore, the Beis Din reinstituted the original law that we're going to take it from the communal funds, even though it's a stress. We're going to take it from the communal funds, which was really the Torah law to begin with. So that's what it means, according to Reb Shimon. That's the whole process here of what it means. It's a Tanai Beis Din. It's a stipulation of the Beis Din that when the Kohen Gadol dies, and there hasn't been another one replacing him yet, that his meal offering comes from the communal funds. Rabbi Yehuda says, Mishal Yarshin. It does not come from the communal funds, it comes from the heirs. Reb Shimon has his source from the Torah to say his opinion. Reb Yehuda has his source from the Torah for his opinion. And actually, the halacha is like Reb Yehuda. Bartanor says that it comes from the children. Galak Reb Yehuda. Now, Ushalei Mahisa Kreva. This last part means like this. Whether we are talking about, whether we're going according to the opinion of Reb Shimon, that it's communal funds. Whether we're talking about the opinion of Reb Yehuda, that it's the heirs that have to bring it, that have to give the money for this minchas chavitin. Ushalei Mahisa Kreva. It was offered whole. What that means is that when this mincha offering was offered using either communal funds or their heirs' money, it was offered as a whole tenth of an ephah in the morning and a whole tenth of the ephah in the afternoon, instead of splitting a single tenth of an ephah between the morning and afternoon offerings. As we mentioned before, the Kohen Gadol himself was doing it, so he took a tenth of an ephah. From that, he made 12 loaves, half in the morning, half in the afternoon. If it is not the Kohen Gadol doing it, it's someone in his place, whether it's the communal funds according to Reb Shimon or it's his heirs according to Reb Yehuda, they bring an entire tenth of an ephah. There's no splitting. You use the entire tenth of an ephah to go ahead and make the afternoon and the evening offerings. You don't take a tenth of an ephah and split it. Both afternoon and both morning and afternoon offerings in this situation are going to be whole. They're going to come from a whole tenth of an ephah, which means it's going to be 12 loaves in the morning and in the afternoon. Have a wonderful day, and again, a good Chodesh.
Thank you, Rabbi.
It's just